Yeah. Yeah. Very nice. How you doing, Chaim?
Baruch Hashem, b'chas Hashem, we made it back. It's absolutely crazy.
Unbelievable.
We got canceled from 6 different airlines.
Wow.
Crazy, absolutely crazy. We were stuck in Athens for Shabbos.
Uh-huh.
We weren't stuck. We were Bashgacha Pratis in Athens.
Right. And is there a community there, or you're just like in a hotel?
There's the Chabad house, Rabbi Handel. He has a beautiful Chabad house.
Wow.
Yeah. There's a lot of Israelis in the city. Wherever you go, you hear Hebrew.
Uh-huh.
What page are you on right now?
Okay, we're gonna start today. Samach Beis Amid Beis.
Okay, perfect.
We're up to Kaman Ozla, which is about 12, 15 lines from the bottom.
Okay, perfect.
First word on the line.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Okay. Thank Hashem. We're able to learn every day. Come on. And then the schus of learning, we should have a base of Migdash. Everyone should be safe. There's another command also. There's 2 of them. There you go. Okay, the last thing, the discussion that we're dealing with here is, can a person make some sort of acquisition on something that doesn't really exist yet? So the reason why we got into this is if a man tells a woman, I want to marry you after I convert, or I want to marry you after I'm freed, he's a slave or something, after you're freed, because that possibility doesn't exist yet. Can he make a acquisition now that will take effect later, which will retroactively go back to when it was originally? So in discussing this,
I'm sorry, Samach Beis Amud Beis?
Samach Beis Amud Beis, yeah.
Okay.
So Rabbi, we had a discussion here about taking truma on fruits that were attached to the ground, or fruits that weren't attached to the ground. And we said from Rabbi Yochanan that anything that's in your hands to do, it could be considered like it was already done, because you have the ability to do it. When I'll remove it, it should be truma, and he's able to remove it, so then it becomes truma. But we spoke about a statement of Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov says that if it reached a third of when it reaches a third of its growth, and I remove it, so then it's effective. So we had a machlekes between Rabbi and Rabbi Yosef. What Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov was talking about. Rabbi said that Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov was talking about when it was shachas. That means that it was fodder. It was already thick straw, and that's why it was already reached that stage. That's why he could say that it was already considered like it's done. Rabbi Yosef says even if it's ba'agam, and we explained that agam meant that there was very thin. Okay. Now the Gemara says, according to whom does it go? This said it was taught in a brayso. The brayso says if someone tells his friend that if your wife gives birth to a girl, so that girl should be betrothed to me. No, the girl wasn't born yet. But the brayso says layamar klum. That's not counted. Reb Chanina explains. Reb Chanina was the first generation Amayra in Eretz Yisrael. His name is Reb Chanina Bar Chama, Talmud of Rabbi. He says leishanu ala sheinish muberes.
Yes, and he's the one who lives for over 300 years.
Oh, could be. Yeah, I don't know that detail. It says that this is only if his wife wasn't pregnant. But if his wife was pregnant, then he can be betrothed to the fetus after the fetus is born, but he can already do the transaction now because it's headed that way. Yeah, in his parent. So he's asking, who's he asking? The father. The father can marry off his daughter. So who does this go like? Come on, who does this go like? Ika Rabba. If it's Rabba, then it would have to be a case Kishuhuka Ubra. Now the reason why Rabba says Kishuhuka Ubra is because Rabba was the one that before explained Rabba Elazar ben Yaakov that only when that straw reached this stage of shachas, it has to reach an initial stage that it should be considered that it's already headed in that direction. Shachas means fodder, the straw, the hay that you make. However, if it would be Rabbi Yosef, if it would follow Rabbi Yosef that says that even if it's not reached that stage and at a lower stage, even if it's not recognizable that she's pregnant. I guess it's not 3 months yet. She's still pregnant, but she's just not. It's not clearly pregnant. 3 months is clearly pregnant. No, in the olden days, to take a pregnancy test meant you wait 3 months. That was the. They had a lot more time. Right.
Could it be that maybe she didn't even know? Like, talking about like the future. This person just said, "Oh."
No, because it says Rabbi Hanina says only if she's pregnant. Now, how pregnant is pregnant? So according to Rabbi Yosef, it would have to. According to Rabba, it would have to be 3 months. According to Rabbi Yosef, even if it's before 3 months. How would she know if she's pregnant? I guess she missed the period or something. I don't know. She could feel a little bit. It's just not recognizable. Morning sickness. What's it called? The nauseousness they get in the morning. Ikadamri. Those there are those that say this a little different. That the machlekes between Rabba and Rabbi Yosef is a little different. Amar Rabba, le'amar Rabba Elazar ben Yaakov ela b'shachas t'bei kivsha, avol b'shachas t'bei shakya loy. Rabba says that when Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov says that you can take truma from grain that hasn't finished growing yet, that's when it had already grown a third. Now we're talking about that. It's only talking about that it was grown a third, but it has to be in a field. It's called stebe sabal, that it can grow just from the rain itself. It doesn't need to be irrigated by manually. Aval b'shachas b'shakya, but if it's the grain that's in a called a beis hashlachim, where you have to actually take water and pour it, and it needs manual irrigation. So that no, because that not necessarily is going to make it. If it can grow just from the rain, we call it like the native crops they grow, or they can grow without you getting involved. They just grow naturally. And you try to other things. But anyway, this is a type of field that can get enough rain when it doesn't need your input. So that would be considered that it's already like halfway in the world. So it's headed that way. And Rabbi Yosef says, Rabbi Yosef on a field b'shachas b'shakya, Rabbi Yosef was the more lenient opinion. He said even if it takes irrigation, that's also considered a good truma. And then on that, the Gemara comes in and says, this is a nikadamri. So we have the machlekes, and now we have Kaman Osla. The Kaman Osla says, the Tanya, this said was taught in a brayso. It says if your wife has a girl, she should be betrothed to me. That's not considered anything. That's only that's only if she wasn't pregnant. But if she was pregnant, then that is a good marriage. Come on, who would that go like? We say since we switched what Rabba and Rabbi Yosef are talking about, that both of them are talking about where it needs to be shachas. The whole question is shachas and which type of shachas means the fodder. But the question is which type of field? Is it a field that's satisfactory, that gets enough rain and it doesn't need you to manually irrigate it? That was Rabba's view. Or even if it's a field that doesn't need irrigation, but that's Rabbi Yosef. But both of them are talking about that already reached the third, which basically means that it would need to be hukar ubra back to us in our case with the marriage. It needs to be that she's recognizably pregnant. That's the third of the grain, right?
That's the same.
Right. Yeah, interesting. Amar Abaya. 4 lines from the bottom. Abaya says, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, Rebbe, Reb Meir, Kulus Virlu, Adamakna Davar Shlei Balaylam. This is very common for Abaya to do this. Abaya puts together a bunch of opinions, and he calls it shita. And a lot of times the Gemara says, "Ein halacha k'shita." Halacha doesn't go when Abaya says they all say the same thing. The truth is that they don't really say the same thing, but they have the same type of statement. They're connected. So what do they say? They all hold, Reb Elazar ben Yaakov, Rebbe, and Reb Meir all hold that Adam makne davar shloi b'olam, that a person can acquire, or makne, he can not acquire, he can give over, transfer, something that hasn't yet come into the world. Futures. Reb Elazar ben Yaakov Hadamer. Reb Elazar ben Yaakov we already spoke about. Why? Because he said about taking truma off grain that hasn't grown yet. So you see that you can, according to him, you can transfer items that haven't yet come into the world. Rebbe, what's the statement of Rebbe? The Tanya was taught in a brisa. Now we're on top of Samach Gimel, 63. The brisa quotes a pasuk. It says, "Leisasker eved al adainav." You shouldn't confine the slave to his master. You shouldn't make him go back to his master. Now, what are we talking about over here? We're calling him a slave, so he's obviously not free. And there's some prohibition of putting him back to the master. Rebbe says, we're talking about that at the time of the sale of buying the Eved Knani. He says, I'm buying you on condition to free you. Gemara says, hey, Chidam, what's the case? Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak says, you're going to kasav la lika she'ekcha harei atzmacha kanei lach ma'achshav. When I buy you, you would be acquired from now. You see, what's happening over here is, if he's a slave, if he's free already, then the pasuk can't call him a slave. If he's not free, then what's the prohibition of telling him that he has to go back to his master? So it must be that the pasuk itself is telling me that he can be makne davar shloi b'olam. This pasuk, according to Rebbe, the pasuk itself is teaching that when I buy you, you should be free. You should be freed from now already. And then he goes and he buys him. So then the pasuk is telling me that it goes back retroactive to that time. He's considered free already. That's the chiddush of the pasuk. And it's like a lamdish. The pasuk itself is telling me that makna adam makna davar shloi b'olam. Okay.
Meaning before while he was a slave.
While he was a slave, he was already. The person told him that when I buy you, you should be free from now already.
So when the person doesn't buy him, he owns
No,
him,
then
and he frees him.
Oh, if a person owns him and he frees him, so then he freed a slave. There's no prohibition of having him go back. Here we're saying that
Is there a purpose here? He has to free him before he buys him.
no, I don't see any purpose. It's just a chiddush in the halacha of how this works. Okay. Okay, so now we have Reb Elazar ben Yaakov about Truma. We have Rebbe about buying a slave and freeing him before you actually acquired him. And the next case is Reb Meir. That's the last opinion. Reb Meir says, Tanya Ha'im Elisha, if someone tells a woman, Harayat Mekudesh li lachashes gaya lachashet tiskairi, tells a woman that, behold, you are betrothed to me after I convert, or after you convert. Doesn't give me the option after both of us convert. After I'm freed as a slave, after you're freed as a slave, should be betrothed to me after your husband dies, after your sister dies, because right now he's married to the sister, so we can't marry two sisters. But after his wife dies, then so he's already doing the kiddushin while she's still alive. But after she dies, the kiddushin should take effect. After your brother-in-law does chalitza on you. All of those cases are Eina Mekudeshes according to the Tanakama, and Rameir Eina Mekudeshes. Rameir says it is a good kiddushin. Yeah, according to Rameir, it's a good betrothal. We need to require a get. Now we see that Rameir says that you can do a kiddushin even though it's not possible.
How could a goy make kiddushin? I don't understand that.
What happens? Avram Nassan was concerned about that. What happens is it's effective after he converts, but retroactively. After he converts, after he becomes Jewish, it goes back to that time.
How could it go back to the time when he was a goy?
Thank you. Yeah, that's my question also.
A goy doesn't do kiddushin.
Good
Right.
question.
It must mean that the kiddushin that took place does not need to be repeated. That must be it. That he doesn't have to do it again after the conversion, because what he said before, that after I convert, you should be married to me. So actually, Rameir says Mekudeshes on all of them. Yeah, we had a problem with that one. The other ones we could explain, but on that one we had a problem with. Remember, Rabbi Yochanan said that kedusha, that gerish, conversion, gerus is not in the hands of the person.
Nothing is in the hands of the person. Nothing is in the hands of the person.
None of these are in the hands of the person. Right. Only what was the case that was in the hands of the person? We had a case of if it's the master of the slave. Oh, even that we said wasn't in the hands. The master of the shifcha says that you should be married to me after you're released, and it's up to him to release her. We said that also wasn't because she could always refuse, so it wasn't really.
Maybe the kiddushin doesn't go retroactive. Maybe it happens at that moment when
At the moment of the conversion. Yeah, that would make sense. That would make sense. Yeah, yeah. I'm saying that and Yitzi, that it doesn't go back. It's retroactive. It's the what was done before takes effect only at that time. So okay, that's Reb Meir's opinion. It's Mekudeshes. Rabbi Yochanan Asandler, I'm Mekudeshes. Rabbi Yochanan Asandler says that she's not married. There was this guy that came to Florida. He was writing a sefer about the time in Amoraim. And what his thesis is what he was trying to prove is that none of them worked. They were all koil people. One of them is Rabbi Yochanan Asandler. So he found another pshat that Rabbi Yochanan Asandler means that he came from Alexandria. Sandler meant like Alexandria. Somehow he found. But Rabbi Yeshua, it says that he was a blacksmith. He had another way of teaching. It was like very, it was, supporting. There was an agenda that he was. Yeah. Okay. So, Rabbi Yochanan Asandler in Mekudeshes. Rabbi Danasi Emir Mekudeshes. Rabbi Danasi says that that she is married. She is married, like Rabbi Meir. But he just adds in. Says, what's the reason why we said that she's not married? That's Mishum Eva. That's because, you see, there were some cases here after your husband dies, after your sister dies, those things we said that it's not a good marriage because we didn't want the hatred to take place between I would create jealousy. Usually Rebbe. Usually it's called Rebbe. The Gemara asks, very good. The Gemara asks, V'nachshav nami Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. Why don't you say Rabbi Yehuda Nasi? Gemara says, because Hainu Rebbe, Hainu Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, it's the same person. We already said Rebbe. So you don't have to say him again. We had him listed under another case of Litasker Rebbe Aladainov that we already had him about the Makna Davar Shle B'Loilam. V'nachshem nami Rabbi Akiva. What about Rabbi Akiva? The Tanya was said in the Brisa, Kainim Shani Yosel Apicha In Tzarech Lahafer. Rabbi Akiva Imer Yafer Shematadef Alav Yasim Min Arai. If a woman says that the work of my hand be forbidden to you, she tells her husband, like Hektish, whatever I do, and the husband is supposed to acquire everything now, all the income that his wife makes. So really, he doesn't even need to do hafara, doesn't need to annul such an oath, a vow of making it hektish, because she has no rights to do that. But Rabbi Kiva says no, she should do it. The husband should annul it because maybe she's going to have more income than what she's required to give to her husband. She's required to earn a certain amount. What was that? And after a certain amount, she can keep it for herself. Mishkal, hey slime, whatever it is. There were certain amounts that we listed. Yeah, that we had different amounts in Yehuda and in Galil. So that the vow could take effect on the extra. Okay. Now is that according to Rabbi Akiva, she can pledge and consecrate items hasn't even earned yet. It's Shema Tadafilov. Maybe she's going to earn that extra. And therefore, Rabbi Akiva says that the husband should already annul it. So she's pledging something that doesn't exist.
No, it says, interesting, going back, that someone betrothed someone that isn't before, made a condition, and he passes away, says, well, I guess there's no
Wait. I mean, that's going to come up. How about someone that wasn't born?
giving betrothal to a married woman that will take effect after her husband dies.
Right. So that was Mishum, but that's why Rebbe was not accept that. Yeah. I was thinking, the Cain and Hevel, according to the Medrash, Hevel had another sister that was born with two. Cain wanted the other one. So the jealousy is the ayin hara. So it doesn't have hara is the fish. The fish, the way they reproduce, the eggs just go on the sea and it goes in groups. The females lay the eggs and the males just come around and it's not they have no partner. So the fish have no jealousy. It's so we always said the fish don't have ayin hara. Their eyes are open. Eyes are open, but it could have to do with the way they reproduce.
So the caviar just goes on.
It just goes on. Well, they probably take it out of fish.
It's amazing, even while they're sleeping, their eyes are open.
Right. Okay, so the Gemara's question is, you can't tell.
Just stay in the same place.
The Gemara is asking that why don't we count Rabbi Akiva? Why don't we count Rabbi Akiva as someone that says that other makim davar shlai b'leilam? So the Gemara says it's Merlam Rabbi Yehuda Breder Rabbi Yeshua by Meres Yikadshu Yadai La Yisayim V'Yadayim Isna B'Leilam. What she really said was not that what I'm going to produce should be hektish. My hands that produce what my hands produce should be hektish, and the hands already exist, so it's as if the item exists already. So Kachi Yadai, my hands should be. Oh, really? Yeah. I know the Mishnah says that if the handle is going to be cut off, right? Uh-huh.
You were going to say that.
That's all it takes.
If there was no possibility of seeing
Take the rest of the day.
jealousy,
Yeah. So
you
then,
would hold that it's okay.
yeah.
It doesn't.
Yeah, so he actually holds like Reb Meir that in that case, except on the cases where there's Eva. Yeah. Okay, we have a new Mishnah. I'm Elisha. Someone tells a woman, Hariyat Mekudeshesli, behold, you're betrothed to me, Almanasha Dabar Lechel Shilton, on condition that I speak on your behalf to the ruler, to the governor, or whatever. And I'll work for you like a worker. Imach. So Americans with Hebrew grammar. Okay, Dabra lecha l'shilton vasima ima kipayel mikudeshes. If he actually did that, he spoke to the governor on her behalf, and he worked for her. Alayach, shilton. Okay. So then Mekudeshes, then it works. That's a good marriage. And if not, it's not a good marriage. So without explaining anything what's going on in this Mishnah, Rish Lakish comes in and he qualifies what the Mishnah is talking about. This would only apply if he gave her actually a ring or he gave her some coin, the value of a pruta. And then he says that on condition that the Gemara says a b'schar lai. The Gemara is saying, I thought the Mishnah meant that the value of hiring someone to go and talk on your behalf, that has certain value. Someone to give a good word for you to the governor, or someone that's going to work for you for a day, that has also value. So why shouldn't she be married just with the value of that that reference and also for that for the work? But Tanya, we have a brayso that says shekaptich ala chamar, sheshabtich right? B'karein besvina, for the payment that I let you ride on my donkey, or the payment that I let you ride on the wagon or on the boat, and that you don't owe me now. That doesn't work. But that is mekudesh. So the whole problem over there was was it something that was done in the past, or is it something that we're going to do now? So because he says that I'm going to talk on your behalf to the governor, so that itself should be have enough value that it should be mekudeshes, even if he doesn't give her a shava pruta. Maybe we could answer. Maybe in that case also, when he says I'm going to let you ride on my donkey, or I'll give you a ride on my boat, so he also gave her a shava pruta. Can't be. For b'schar kamar said clearly b'schar for the payment of that, wants to be married to her because of that payment, which she doesn't have to pay. Va'itanya was also taught in a brayso. Let's say, when it says, sit with me, and who's telling who over here? Va'itanya shaving me b'tzavsa ba'kadish lach. Is this the woman telling the man? This is the woman telling the man, sit with me together. I don't want to be alone. And then I'll be married to you. Okay. Schaik lefanai. Do jokes in front of me. Maybe it was a clown or something. Rekaid lefanai, huh? Entertain me. Dance in front of me. I say kedimas hazeh. I'm not sure what Dimas means, but
she is saying it.
She's saying to him, to do, if you do this for me, it will have like a value enough. I'll value it, and I'll be married to you. So Shaman, we evaluate him. Does that type of entertainment, that type of a company, does that have a value of a pruta? Mikudeshes. I didn't translate Dimas because I don't know what it is. I think it's some sort of Kedima says that be like this building. What does he want from her to do? What does she want him to do?
Build statue.
To build a statue? All right. There is a pshat in this that Rekoid lefanai kedima sazer or something. Dance in front of me like this clown, and Demas was some sort of like mask or something. Anyway. Shamanim yesh b'shava pruta. We evaluate if it's a shav pruta mekudeshes lavenu mekudeshes. You see over there, it's clearly that you don't need a pruta. It was just from that itself. There was this fellow in Lakewood when I was there. His name was Moshe Abba Kamyan. He was a big Talmud Chacham, but he had they called it back then a nervous breakdown or whatever. He was a Holocaust survivor. I think his wife was killed by the chuppah. And but then he would hang around the yeshiva. He was an older bacher. It's like in his 80s, these old, and he would just say like vertlach to the anyway. So one of his vertlach was How could you make Mekadesh the Levana without a Shava Pruta? Kiddush Levan, you know. Anyway, so he said the Mishnah says that's Rekaid Lefanai. So it works. Like Shem Shani Rekid Kenegdech, that's what it's Kiddush Levana.
Oh, yeah,
It's a play on word. Kiddush Levana. He says, but how could you betroth the moon? It sounds like kiddushin. It's just his joke. I had this other joke with if it says that Hashem blessed Abram Bakal. Bakal is according to the Medrash, means that he had a daughter. Bakal, the Medrash says a daughter. So if Avram had a daughter and he was looking for a wife for Yitzchak, it was before Matan Torah. Yitzchak could have married the daughter. Because before Matan Torah, he says no. He says it's a machlekes if you had it. You didn't want to be mashadach into machlekes.
You didn't want to stand like
Okay. He would make copies of all different things and laminate them. You'd get like this big scroll, and in the middle was a wafer. Like you roll it up with all types of random copies. But anyway, okay. So maybe in that case also when he says Rekaid Lefana, he was also giving him giving. He passed away. I was there at the Levaya. So maybe he gave a shavu. It says no. Vashaman I say come. It says that you have to evaluate. You have to evaluate that entertainment that it was a shavu pruta. Obviously, he didn't give her a shavu pruta. Gemara says, this is a very strong question. You have to do Rish Lakish. It's a strong question on Rish Lakish. Rish Lakish said that in all of these cases we're talking about where he also gave a shavu pruta with or at least in our Mishnah, we're talking about where he gave a shavu pruta. It doesn't need to give a shavu pruta. The service itself that he spoke on her behalf to the governor should have done the marriage. Amalei Rish Lakish would be able to answer, say like this: Hi Tana Bra, the Brisas that you quoted to me that over there is talking about a shavu pruta, that's savar enol eschir shalal b'sayf, because whatever activities were being done on behalf of this woman, which should have had a value of a shavu pruta, the author of the Brisa holds that when it comes to payment for a service, the payment is more like a purchase. That at the end of the whole service, you purchase that. You pay for it right then. However, the Tana Didana, our Tana holds that the service that's performed already includes payment from the very beginning. And so therefore it requires the payment from the very beginning. So therefore at the end, when the person says, you don't have to pay me, when the husband tells to his betrothed, you don't have to pay me, he's really forgiving a debt that he was lending her from the beginning. And at the end of the service, you have to pay up the whole debt. He says, you don't have to pay me. Mekadesh b'milveh, it's not mekudeshes. You try to marry a woman by saying, you don't have to pay me the money that you owe me, that's not a good kiddushin. It has to be a gift right now. So since when it comes to a service, according to the author of the author of our Mishnah, the payment is accrued over time, so therefore it doesn't work, and that's why the Rish Lakish learned our Mishnah that he actually gave her a shavu pruta together with it. What was compelling Rish Lakish to say that that's the case of our Mishnah, and therefore that's the opinion of our Mishnah? Why don't you just say that he said, I'll speak on your behalf to the governor, and that has a value of a shavu pruta, and it's following the other opinion. Rabbi says that he had a question on our Mishnah. The wording of the Mishnah says almanas, on condition. On condition means that he actually gave her a ring, and he said on condition that. So if there's a condition, then you have to meet the condition. However, the Brises said b'schar, that says as a reward for. Whenever it says almanas, it's talking about where he actually gave her money, and then there's a condition that needs to be met. Okay. Now we have another Mishnah. It says, Al Menash Yirtza Abba. It says, I'm marrying you on condition that my father agrees. This is the chassan. This is the groom is saying.
That's more like.
Because he's the one that has to agree that his father has no say.
Well, he could have said on condition that I have a boat. He could have said anything. The boat has nothing to do with the marriage. He says he made a condition. He says he wants his father to agree. His father doesn't agree. It's not a good. It's not a good marriage. That was he can make any stipulation that he wants.
He's
Right.
paying for the wedding, right, father?
Yeah, it doesn't say that.
Not those days.
The Kalas paid for the wedding.
That's right.
Wake up.
The father just has to do flop.
No, not even those days. Nothing in those days.
Flowers,
Photographer or something.
I think it's the flops now with the S at the end, also the shaitel.
Oh, the shaitel. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So Ratzahav, if the father agrees to the marriage, so Mekudeshes, then it's a good marriage. From Lavein and Mekudeshes, it's not a good marriage. Of course, none of these things work out exactly as planned. And Mesa'av, the father dies before we get a word out of him. So Harezim Mekudeshes, they're married.
Over his dead body.
Right, over his dead body, right. Mesa Ben, what happens if the chassan dies?
Ooh.
We don't know what the father would have said. So you go to the father and you tell him, don't agree.
Wow.
Because we don't want the daughter to end up being a widow. That creates problems. Yibam and all of that.
Is if he agreed.
If the father would have agreed. The son dies, the chassan dies. Yeah. And he already had given her the kiddushin, it would take effect retroactive. No, 1 second.
And he passed away after.
The kiddushin was done, but it had a stipulation.
The father has
And
to
the
be-
father-
it could have been any time.
If the father dies, then we assume that they're married.
One after the other. Because he passed away.
No,
And
1
he
second.
didn't agree, and he agrees after he passed away.
No,
No.
but the problem
Makes
is
sense.
that there's two separate cases there. First of all, first case number 1 was where the father died. So we don't have any word on from the father.
Right.
So we say that it's marriage. Okay. He didn't not agree. So we say that they're married. Second case is where the chassan dies. So then we tell the father to say that you don't agree. Because there was a kiddushin that was given, but there was in order for that to take effect, we would need the father to agree.
Before he passed
No.
No.
Before the chassan passed away.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the only thing is that when it works with the almanas, it's kaimer me'achshav. It's as if it goes retroactive.
But,
So
but
that still would have been a marriage, and she'd end up being a widow.
even though he did it after he
Yeah, almanas me'achshav. It's retroactive. It goes back to that time. If we're following almanas is me'achshav.
But it's something that can never come to this world. I'm saying once he passes away.
The question is, was the marriage was for, let's see, 2 weeks, okay? He was married for 2 weeks before they went to visit the father. Gave her kiddushin already. And they said, if my father agrees, then at the time when the father agrees, it goes back to the original kiddushin.
Right, it goes back to the original vision, but it can't go back because he passed away.
So it
That's what
can't go
I'm saying.
further.
No,
can't go
he already
further.
made kiddushin.
It can't go
He already made
further.
kiddushin. It doesn't
And in
fall.
2 weeks,
It
they're
doesn't-
going to go and
I
speak.
know, I understand. It doesn't apply.
It
Until
doesn't-
he
it-
agrees.
Right.
No, but once he agrees, it goes back to the original.
Correct.
Whenever.
me'achshav.
And once he dies, it can't go back because.
No, once he
No.
dies, it can't go further.
And backwards.
No, backwards it could go.
No,
The
not
sons
mixing.
are-
not
Yeah,
mixing.
I understand what you're saying. But if you hold that Haimer Almanas Haimer Me'achshav, then it goes back retroactive to that time. Because was there ever a marriage yet? Okay. Why do we say that? Because he didn't reject it. But
All you can do is tell him to put a ring on a finger without it, without it.
oh, do it again.
Do it again.
Do it again. So the answer to that is that not necessarily they both agree to this right now. Maybe she's trying to take kiddushin from someone else, and there's always some sort of complication.
Take that ring back.
It doesn't help. You can't just take the ring back.
According to the mission, that means that if they both died, she's married.
If they both died,
She's married.
She can't be married. She might be a widow.
yeah,
If she's married.
yeah, from
She's a
that
widow.
time, yeah. Okay, now the Gemara says, "My almanach yirtza abba." What did he actually mean when he says, "On condition that my father agrees"? Ilema ada amar abba in. Does the father have to say yes? Is that what we want? The father to say yes? 1 second, that can't be. Because Ema Mitziyasa, let's take a look at the middle case of the Mishnah. Mesa Avarizim Mekudeshes. V'lo Yamarin. He never said yes. So, Ella, it must be Almanash Yishtik Abba. It must be that he doesn't reject it. He doesn't protest. Okay. Ema Seifa, let's go further. Mesa Ben. If the son dies, we have to train the father to make a statement. 1 second. But he was quiet before we trained him. And at that moment that he was quiet, the marriage took effect immediately because he didn't reject it immediately.
I think the way it
Right,
works
we have to
is
train him.
if a woman is silent, therefore it's as if she's accepting.
Right.
But
Right. Here, it's not the chassan being silent. Here, it's the
father,
stipulation that the father is going to. So we started off saying that if the first case of the Mishnah would fit, the first case of the Mishnah we could say that it means that he has to say yes. The second case of the Mishnah means that he doesn't say anything, he doesn't reject it. The third case of the Mishnah would mean that he has to say something, and not rejecting isn't enough, so it doesn't fit exactly. Elam Allah, rather it must be Almanash Yimcha Abba. On condition, when he says, it must be that he says on condition that my father doesn't protest. Okay, so now, does that fit with all of the cases? No, the Seifa means on condition that my father doesn't protest. And before he protests, right? The middle case could also be on condition that he doesn't protest. He didn't protest, he died. The first case, Amanash Yirtza Abba, on condition that he doesn't protest. Could also work.
Silence equals consent because it would be something the father would normally.
So we're changing the Mishnah?
I'm sorry?
We're changing the Mishnah here, or we're explaining?
Are we changing the Mishnah? Sounds like we're adjusting the what the Mishnah meant.
You just say that shtika koida, and then he's quiet, doesn't say anything, so it's as if he gives it approval.
That's a problem. Because if he's quiet, then it doesn't fit with the Seifa. Because in the Seifa, after he was quiet, they trained him to make a statement. So if he was quiet already, then the marriage already took effect. The statement later shouldn't work.
Maybe they both work, just a statement is all it takes.
But once there's kiddushin, so then how do you get rid of it? By the Gemara says. Oh, if the father can, okay, so it breaks down the Mishnah. If the father consents to his betrothed, that's talking about if the father remains silent when he first hears his son's act. The father does not consent, she is not betrothed. This is interpreted as the father protests. The father dies, she is betrothed. This means on condition that my father does not protest. So now, yes, so what's happening is the middle case and the last case of the Mishnah is doesn't protest. In the first case of the Mishnah is even if it's is as if he's silent. He's silent. Silent means the first case if he's silent. Silence is the same as not protest. Okay. Now the Gemara says that Reisha b'chad taima, Mitziasa v'seifa b'chad taima. So it's coming out is that when it says al manashi yirtza abba, that means that if he's silent, that's good enough for the marriage to take place. And to make the marriage not good, then he has to protest. So 1 second, that sounds like the same thing. 1 second.
I mean, there's an easy way out. He only found out that they were married. They want to marry her after.
Yeah, the Gemara is going to give an example like that. Just give me 1 second. Oh, there's a problem. Problem is like this, that if you say that it requires, in order to invalidate the marriage, anytime that you protest would automatically invalidate. See, staying quiet, the marriage is good if he stays quiet. That means if he's quiet, right then, the marriage is good. But if we say he doesn't protest, that doesn't mean that he was quiet. That means that he has the right to protest at any time. So it would work like this. So the only time that the marriage would take effect then would be if the father died and he didn't protest before he died. See, when do we see that the stipulation was met? If it's that he doesn't protest, then okay, he didn't protest and he died. Okay, so the marriage is good. When do we say that? And then if the chassan dies, we just tell him to protest. Okay, so he protested, so then it's good. But if the first case where that my father agrees to it, that would be that he doesn't protest. And how do we know that he's not going to protest at any time? His whole life then the marriage is never going to take effect. So it must be
cancel it 20 years later.
You can cancel it 20. So it must be that the first case of the Mishnah is talking about if he was quiet even for 1 moment. So
well, at some point there's going to be the filling.
I'm sorry.
This is just kiddushin, right? At some point they're gonna.
Yeah, but the kiddushin itself, for the first case of the Mishnah, has to take effect at some point. So it must mean that if he's quiet, it takes effect right away. But for the second case and the third case, we're going to say that he can always protest until he dies.
He sobers up.
When he sobers up.
This reminded me of I was wondering how long does he have to go to this
Right. So what we just did in our Mishnah, is we divided up the Mishnah into separate cases in order to make it fit. So Reisha b'chad time and Tziyasa v'seifa b'chad time, and that's what you want to do. Amar Rabbi Yanai in. Rabbi Yanai says yes. Amar Reish Lakish Mamin Alad Rabbi Yanai. Reish Lakish, Rabbi Yanai is a teacher of Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish. We learned from Rabbi Yanai. It turns out that we would rather separate the Mishnah to divide it into different cases, and it should follow one opinion, as opposed to make it into a machlokes and have it all the same case. That's why when you have a contradiction, what's better? You have two ways of resolving contradiction. One way is you say it's machlokes. Another way is you say the case is different. Which one is a better answer? We see from Rabbi Yanai that it's better for us to answer that the case is different than to say it's machlekes. Rabbi Yosef Barami Amar Leilam Chad Taimahu. Rabbi Yosef Barami says that really it's all the same case. What does it mean that my father will agree? Who just said this? You just said it. On condition that my father doesn't protest from now until 30 days. So now, what we can do is, even the first case of the Mishnah, we could say that the marriage took place, and but he can always protest. He says, no, we can't always protest. He has up to 30 days to protest. And then after 30 days, they married. And the same thing would apply if he died right away. He's not protesting. He didn't protest before he died. He's not protesting for 30 days. And the last case, which was where we train the father to protest. Yeah, he has up to 30 days to protest. So we train him. It could all be really the same case.
The woman can say the same thing.
She can also make a tonight.
I accept the
On condition, yeah.
And it applies the same thing.
Yeah. Well, if I will not protest, that would be a very difficult. It would never be really married. You would have to say, I'm not protest for 30 days. Yeah. Should we stop over here? Yes, we should stop here. We can go on? Okay, so now I'll do the Mishnah. Stop. Yeah, you're going to prepare? Yeah, okay, so let's leave it. Okay.
We just won't get all these things.
So if you go to the Daf Yomi Advancement Forum, that's the website is dafyomi.co.il. Yeah,
No, isn't,
no, that's the website.
okay,
dafyomi.co.il,
so they have all these different.
and they have a lot of resources. Yeah.
That's cool.
Rabbi, can we use this for today's days for goodness?
That one.
Not to have a goodness.
You do